Hello guys, welcome back today. My video will be today talking about the Montreal Canadiens and should they still fire Marc Bergevin. Of course, you hear it all the time, there's loads of Montreal Canadiens fans who are calling for his head, and deservedly so. The past couple of seasons, he hasn't been all too great. He was a few seasons ago, he did make some pretty good moves back then. But now, I don't think that it's quite working out for him. There's lots of moves that haven't turned out the way that Montreal Canadiens fans are wanting, and that the team is wanting. There's lots of moves that are lacking just the good side for the Montreal Canadiens, and a lot of them aren't going their way, so that's a big thing. And a lot of times, he's made moves that haven't fit what the team needs, and has just been focused towards what they want from it now. They need to find some consistency because they don't really have that past couple of seasons, and they need to find something to fix the holes on offense, on defense. And goaltending is fine now because Carey Price is back, but they need to find something to fill those holes, and pretty much quick. Now Carey Price has come back, and he's played decent in the 2 games that he's played. He's played really well in those games, and it's looking better for them. I think that the thing was that Carey Price had a nagging injury to start the season, and then he was put on the DL or put on the IR because he had that nagging injury, and they just called it quits on him for a month and then let him back, and he's playing great now. Now that the injury is settled, I think he'll play a lot better, and he can carry that Montreal Canadiens squad. If they just get a few points going, few points going in games, if they get offense going, they could be a lot better. But Carey Price can lead that team to the playoffs. We'll see about the playoffs if they win anything, but Carey Price can definitely lead them to the playoffs. But I think they'll need to add a few guys on offense and on defense to really solidify that team going forward, especially for a playoff run if they even get there. Now, I think Price is worth $10.50 million to be exact, but for 10 years, that is just a ridiculous contract for length. The salary, I think it is deserved. The length, though, I can't justify it. I think it goes until he's like 42, something ridiculous like that. $10 million until a guy is 42, especially for a goaltender, that is a bit ridiculous. But not signing Radulov or Markov even when you have the space for it, I don't really see the reason for that. He definitely could have signed Markov for a 1-year deal if he gave him like $5 million. But no, Markov was picky about it. He wanted 2 years, but I think that they could have justified that and gave him a 2-year deal. Not keeping their young defensemen is a big part of it. Like trading from Jeff Petrie and a lot of these guys, Jordy Ben, a lot of these guys that are slow defensemen that aren't really going to help the Montreal Canadiens in the speed department at all. They're just stay-at-home defensemen that are blocking shots and all that, but they aren't going to be the offensive guys that are going to lead the offense. And the offense is definitely lacking on the defensive side, and I think that they could use Sergachev right now, definitely. Drouin is a decent player. He's on point pace for 40, 50 points, and I'd say that's pretty disappointing all in all, but he's a good player. But you gave up Sergachev for him, probably the best offensive prospect that the NHL has had for a few years now, and to give him up for a guy like Drouin, who isn't a star. He isn't a star. He's a great player, but he isn't a star. They could have gotten a lot more for Drouin or for Sergachev, but Steve Yzerman works his magic and he gets Sergachev out of Drouin. That's just a ridiculous trade. Honestly, I think the Canadiens will deeply regret for the next few years. It's all said and done. I think that Sergachev could be a Hall of Famer. Drouin, not so much. Marc Bergevin knew that they had an offensive problem. He thought that they fixed it with trading for Drouin, but even if you get that guy and he's better than Sergachev offensively, that's just one piece, and you need a bunch of pieces to fix that offense, which is desperately lacking on depth, desperately lacking in front, and desperately lacking on defense. They could have gotten a lot more for Sergachev. They didn't, and they focused on one guy, and they thought it was all done, all just good. It was all going to be great. They needed more depth, and they didn't make it. They didn't sign anybody, and definitely didn't help matters that a lot of those guys like Sherbak and McCarron weren't totally ready for the NHL yet, which didn't help matters at all, really. Byron's basically their only good depth guy, which is saying something. Byron is a great center. I think he is actually playing wing. He could be both, really. But he's like one of their only solid depth guys, and that's really saying something for the Canadiens, who are desperately lacking on it. Byron is probably the only good guy on that bottom six. Oh, and also you trade for Martinson, a pretty terrible player, for Sven Andrighetto, who is doing fantastic for Colorado. Like, he's doing great. I think he's like on pace for like 40 points, something like that. But he's doing fantastic in Colorado. And you acquire Martinson, who you trade away after one season to Chicago, for basically nothing. Sven Andrighetto is lining it up in Colorado, and that's just it looks like a terrible trade for Montreal. Whereas the Drew Sergachev trade, you trade away Beaulieu, who you could definitely use for a third-round pick. Buffalo, he isn't doing fantastic in Buffalo, but they can definitely use it at Montreal. Of course, the Weber for Subban trade, which Subban is doing great in Nashville, but Weber's not doing terrible in Montreal. Let's be honest. Right now, these first couple of seasons, I think it'll be a lot better for Montreal, but Subban will be so much better long term. You see Jordy Ben, which I think that they won that trade, but not Jordy Ben for top 4 defenseman, but Jordy Ben isn't a top 4 defenseman. He is a great top 6 guy, and they're using him as a top 4 defenseman, and I don't think that's going to work. And it hasn't really worked so far, and I don't see it working at all. I think a terrible trade, another one for the Canadiens, received Shaw for 2 second-round picks or going to Chicago. Shaw has way too many years at too much cap space. He's an okay depth guy, but it's like almost $4 million for like, I don't know, 5 more years, something like that. Something ridiculous. Chicago got out of that contract way too easy, and they got a lot for him. Shaw's an okay scorer, but he's really not a pure scorer. He's more of just a grinder. He isn't going to get too much going for you. Shaw just has a terrible contract, and Montreal for some reason took that on. It's pretty dumb. Do I think they can make the playoffs since Carey Price is doing so well to start out off the injury bug? I think that they could if they get the offense going, definitely. But Carey Price has shown before that he can carry a team to the playoffs and not just get them out of the first round. He can definitely do a lot of things to make a team go to the playoffs, because the Canadiens were terrible when Carey Price was injured, and they led the division when Carey Price was not. So Carey Price can do a lot of things for them. He can just win games for you, and he's done that so far. He could definitely do that for the rest of the season. You could definitely see them surging back into the playoff spot, but I'm still not convinced that they'll do anything in the playoffs unless they fix the offense. I sound like a broken record, don't I? Do I think that the Canadiens should fire Marc Bergevin? Back to the point of this video. Not yet, because after this season, if they don't make the playoffs, I think that he should be fired. But if they make the playoffs this season, they get back into the playoffs, you can definitely see the Canadiens keep him. But if they miss the playoffs this season, I think it might be over for him. I think that his job for this season is safe, especially if Carey Price coming back. It's looking a lot better. But for this next offseason, if they don't make the playoffs, you could for sure see him go. I'm confident that you could definitely see him go after this season. That's going to be it for today, guys. Guys, do enjoy. Make sure to like. Guys, really enjoy. Subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.